We're ready.
All right. Welcome everyone to this Cradle conversation. My name is Laura Halpin. I use she, her pronouns, and I am recording from my home in Walnut Creek, California, which is on the stolen land of the Bay Miwoks. And I wanted to, before I even introduce my guest, I just wanted to say hello to my friend and teacher, Julie NEALE.
Hello, Laura. I'm just like, my heart is so full from the beautiful way that you helped us set intentions before you even started recording.
Mm-hmm.
So what a gift you are. Thank you for this time and for who you are in the world and for this invitation to spend some time in conversation with you today.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Mm.
So I am so excited to have my friend Julie NEALE on this conversation or in this conversation because Julie has been one of those pivotal people in my life. And I met her in a class with Nicole Lee, and it was called Courageous Conversations.
Mm.
And when I met Julie, I knew that I had a model that I was looking for. And what she was modeling as a white woman with a platform was that she was learning how to use her own unique, authentic voice to promote the voices of women of color and people of marginalized or who are holding marginalized identities, and in a way that was very congruent to her work in the world. And so I knew that I needed to
Mm.
learn from Julie. And so Julie is a coach. She is a podcaster. She has a podcast called Mother's Quest. She also has a group of women podcasters, and the group of them are called Women Podcasters in Solidarity. And so, in the spirit of talking about you using your platform for the collective good, I was hoping that you could say a little something about Women Podcasters in Solidarity.
Mm. Yes. Thank you. Um, I was I don't know, a few months to almost a year into my journey of bringing Mother's Quest to the world. Um, when I decided with clarity and put my stake in the ground that if I was building a platform, that I needed to be using that platform um, to make a difference. And initially, it was around the topic of anti-racism. It was sparked by a conversation that I saw on Facebook, a Facebook Live from my friend Genji Heiston,
Mm,
after the death of another Black man at the hands of a police officer, just crying about the fear she feels daily, um, living as a Black woman with a Black husband and Black sons and Black brothers, fearing for their safety. And so there was an initial calling to respond to her and to begin to be in conversation and think about how could I use the podcast as a way to shine a light on not only her voice and other voices like hers, but also to kind of unravel how could I possibly step into um, becoming not an activist, but to using activism in my own way, in my
mhm,
own authentic way, where I could make a difference. And it actually took the Charlottesville rally for me to put the stake in the ground.
mhm,
So you and I were actually talking about the way that we work and how sometimes things take a while to evolve.
mhm,
I think
mhm,
that there were, these ideas simmering and this desire to make a more concrete commitment about how to use my podcast. But when I woke up to the news of the Charlottesville rally, I just was like, I can't let my own fear of getting it wrong or needing to be perfect stop me from making this commitment.
mhm,
And so
mhm.
I did as I often do. I sat down and like typed out a post on Facebook and just declared this is what I'm doing. I named it Women Podcasters in Solidarity. I committed to doing a series of episodes that podcast season on the topic of anti-racism and police accountability. And then I just figured that if I could make that commitment, that there were a lot of other women podcasters, and particularly white women podcasters, who might make that commitment alongside me. And so I just started inviting people to be part of it. And we had a first season, and then a second season, and another topic. And then we're currently in the third season. And with each of those seasons, I have had the incredible privilege of being in conversation with inspiring, amazing mothers, and shining a light on different issues and really learning from them, and then trying to bring what I learn into real action in my life.
And could you just name all, so the first season was anti-racism and police accountability.
Yeah. So my very first conversation and my first guide was Nicole Lee.
Oh.
Our
connector.
Yeah. And the episode was called, how to have courageous conversations about race. And she gave me a great gift, which was to hold a growth mindset for stepping into these conversations and doing this work. That we so often hold a growth mindset, or want to hold a growth mindset for our children as mothers. We want them to feel like they can fail and they can experiment, and they don't have to think that they're perfect. And that the same could be true for my work around these conversations and stepping into more activism.
And what were the next
helpful.
2 seasons?
And did you want me to name the other people I interviewed? I wasn't. So Nicole, the first season I interviewed Nicole, and then Nicole connected me to Sarah Mokuria, who's the co-founder of Mothers Against Police Brutality. And then I also interviewed Kate Schatz, who's the author of Rad Women and other rad books, from as a conversation between two white women committed to doing anti-racism work. So that was my first season. The second season was focused on the intersectional impact of gun violence on our communities. And for that, I interviewed Gloria Pan from Moms Rising, and also Sabrina Fulton from, obviously she's Trayvon Martin's mom, the Trayvon Martin Foundation. And specifically, we talked a lot about her creation of a healing retreat called Circle of Mothers, which you were very instrumental in helping to raise over $15,000 for, so that we could send more mothers to that healing retreat. And then I also interviewed Will Lateef Little. So in addition to moms, I do around Father's Day interview some fathers. And he's somebody who had actually taken somebody else's life through gun violence and went to jail and really transformed himself from the inside out. And now is a spoken word artist and a activist of his own.
And I think I've told you before that has been the most powerful conversation that I've listened to. That was life-changing for me. So anyway.
Can I ask you, what was the main thing that shifted for you from that conversation?
Well, because even as someone who had taken the life of somebody else, he did not throw himself away. And that by seeing that his life still had value, he was able to move on and has had such impact. And so to me, who has never taken a life and who, the things that shame me don't come close to that.
Right.
And so for me, it was like, if he doing what he did, if his life still has value, how can I not forgive myself for the things that I've done or thought or said and just get over myself and keep moving?
Yeah.
And so I just carry him with me, really pretty daily.
That is my hope and intention with every conversation that I record and share, that
Mhm.
there's at least one person who needs the message.
Yeah.
So my heart is so full knowing that.
Mhm.
And I just want to mention the current season is on the topic of immigration. And I just released a couple weeks ago my conversation with Belinda Arriaga, who works with Bay
Mhm.
Area Border Relief, about the families that are still seeking asylum on the other side of the border in this asylum seeking limbo in the midst of a pandemic with no running water or access to health care. And sharing that conversation hopes to raise more awareness and send some love and supplies so that those families know they're not forgotten.
Mhm. So at the end of this conversation, in addition to whatever links, I'll link to that particular project that you are working on. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So we're way into this conversation without having started the conversation, but sometimes I forget. I want to call everyone close who is going to be watching across time and space, that we want to welcome you here. We want to acknowledge our connection. We want to hold you close as people in our community. And the hope here is that this conversation will bring you comfort and courage and a sense of connection, and also the possibility of cultivating something new, something maybe that we haven't seen before. And so anyway, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here.
Yay. I love that you did that. I was listening to your conversation with Nick Strack yesterday.
Uh,
And when you stopped to welcome people in through time and space, I was like, that's me. I'm listening now. Thank you.
With you. All right, Julie Neal. So the first question is, what cradles you?
Mm. So I have a morning practice that I did this morning before we came to the call, and I was thinking about that question. And there are actually so many things that cradle me. I'm grateful for that gift of knowing that at this stage in my life. But there were three that came into my mind as I was sitting on my deck, thinking. The first thing that cradles me is reflection and
Mm,
inquiry. Just the process of being able to be in a discovery mode, to learn about myself, to learn from other people, to ask um, open-ended, empowering questions that bring clarity and
mhm,
to make meaning of our life.
mhm,
So that's the first thing, and that shows up in so many different ways. Um, I was in a youth development organization as a leader there for 15 years, and we had a practice literally called reflection, where we sat in a circle and carved out dedicated time as a team to just sit in inquiry with one another. So sometimes it looks formal like that, and sometimes it's a quiet moment during some meditation on my deck, and sometimes it's me interviewing somebody on the podcast.
mhm,
Sometimes it's a question that comes from my son in the kitchen, which I talked about in the episode that I recorded last night that really shifted things for me. So it comes in all forms, but just that process of being able to press pause, slow down, and think
mhm,
about like what's really happening, what
mhm,
really matters, what is this about, has become such a guiding force in my life.
mhm, mhm.
That's the first one. I had two
Okay,
more, but
that's
I
a
don't
good
know if you
one.
have a follow-up
That's a good
question to the
one.
first one.
No, I just wanted to, questions are so powerful. And I think that so often we just want an answer
Mhm.
without just having that, like sitting with the question and allowing for the opening that it
Yeah.
provides. And so just that, you know, your questions, what matters, and what's happening here.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, what else?
The second thing I was thinking about, and this is something you and I were talking about recently, um, when I created Mother's Quest, I realized that it was about me saying yes to living what I now call my epic life.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that I'm the hero of my journey and the author of my story, and that I can fill my life with the things that matter most. And then also, EPIC is an acronym mnemonic for the guideposts that I think help us live that life when we're raising our children. That framework has really become an anchor for me in my life ever since I created it, which is now about 4 years ago, maybe just a little less. It anchors the conversations I have on my podcast. It
Mm-hmm.
anchors our coaching program that, one of which was the Mother's Quest Circle that you were a part of.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I actually think about. Excuse me. I'm going to take a quick drink. It's something I think about every morning in my morning practice. I do a quick scan, like on a scale from 0 to 10 on each guidepost. Where am I feeling right now?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want more of or less of that will get me closer to where I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so grateful for that. And for a little while in the midst of the pandemic, I think I was having a crisis of faith in many ways, and wondering, like, does any of this matter? Does what I do matter? What is this epic life thing in the midst of a pandemic? Like, is that just ridiculous? And it actually was sinking back into the framework and to my purpose and my work that reconnected me to myself. So that has become a really powerful anchor. And then the last thing I was thinking about was just community, connections, relationship, realizing that we don't have to be alone, that we can look to guides that maybe are a few steps ahead of us. And yeah, those roots that we were reflecting on before we started, those interconnected roots that we can draw up from for strength. All those things cradle me.
For those of you who have never listened in to Julie's podcast, the EPIC framework is basically cradles her conversations, and I just think I just recommend that you kind of dive in. I'll provide links, but I think the questions and that framework are really really helpful and magical as you apply them over and over and over again in your conversations. So thank you. All right, Julie, those are really helpful framework, questions, and connection. Yeah. Okay. The second question is, do you have a cradle to offer?
Yes. So I think very broadly, the Mother's Quest community is a cradle. I have a free Facebook group that I really hold as like a authentic, genuine circle of the most incredible mothers who come through the podcast. And then I'm about to do the third annual Mother's Quest Manifesto Challenge, which is a reflective process that happens just after Mother's Day. It's a gift we can give to ourselves. And it was co-created in conversation. So I don't know if you heard my conversation on the podcast with Graham Seabrook.
Yes, I did.
But basically, at the end of every conversation, my guest can give me a challenge to help me more fully live my epic life. And as Graham and I were doing our pre-recording conversation and talking about, like, does she have something in mind? And Mother's Day's coming up. And we actually came together to this idea of, well, we each felt like we had created manifestos of our own. Mine was that living an epic life, and hers was this motherhood bill of rights that she wrote, which was so incredible. And we wanted that for more moms. We want more mothers to feel like they don't have to sacrifice themselves or be adrift or have all of their focus be on their children, but to really take some time to figure out what matters most to them,
Mm-hmm.
and create something that can also be their anchor.
Mm-hmm.
And so on Monday after Mother's Day, there's going to be a 7-day experience where I share daily reflective prompts in the morning. And then I've invited some of my amazing guides, and even some people who I maybe don't know as well, but I have the sense like there's something that we need to hear from them,
Mm-hmm.
to come and share their journey, their manifesto, and some practice or tool that can help us with what our daily reflective prompt is. And then this time, for the first time, Graham and I are going to co-facilitate a community celebration via Zoom at the end. And it's our hope that more women will have manifestos they want to share and celebrate,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not. Maybe they're still in
Mm-hmm.
the simmering waiting period, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
come with whatever lessons they've learned along the way, or any new piece of clarity about how they want to show up as
Mm-hmm.
mothers and as people in the world.
Well, what I love about this cradle that you offer is basically all three cradles that you shared with us at Cradle You are embedded in this. And so there's that
Oh,
reflection
yes.
and inquiry. There's a saying yes, to
Yeah.
whatever the manifesto is. And then also that opportunity to learn from one another and connect.
Be in
So
community. Yes.
yeah,
Thank you for connecting
way,
those dots for me.
way to practice what you preach. Awesome. Okay, so I will be including links to that as well. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So, what about the third question? Is there something that we can practice?
Mm. Yeah. What is coming up for me in the moment about what to practice um, is actually a practice that one of my guests on the podcast gave to me. Her name is Michelle Gale, and she's a mindfulness expert. And it's a 3 breath practice.
Mm,
So she essentially calls us to, she talks about finding equanimity in the storm. And in the midst of this pandemic storm, like hers was one of the first episodes I popped back in to listen to.
mhm,
And so she encourages us to just kind of notice when it feels like the storm is raging and we are kind of spinning and we've lost our grounding, our anchor, and just take time for 3 breaths.
mhm,
The first is literally just to breathe, just to start the practice and notice the air kind of coming in and out. The second breath is to try to breathe in a sense of calm, just to bring a little bit of stillness. And then on the third breath, we ask ourselves the question, what matters most now?
mm,
And I don't know why that's making me cry. Um, but it can literally be, I've used it when I have like noticed myself starting to yell at my son
mm,
at Google Classroom or whatever, like,
mhm.
just sit down and do the project. And I'll be like, okay, wait a minute.
Just learn.
Breathe, calm. What matters most now? Is it that he
Mhm,
finishes this assignment? Is that he feels loved and accepted? Like,
mhm,
what do
mhm,
I need to shift? But it also, um, one of the things that brought me back into myself so that I could record the episode that I'm releasing on Mother's Day that I hope people will listen to, and to do this challenge, which was really on hold. Like there was this pandemic pause where for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't releasing episodes. I wasn't planning
mhm,
anything.
mhm,
Um, it was my son that I had told him I was feeling kind of depressed, my teenager. And he said to me, when was the last time you felt connected to your purpose? And I had to stop and like kind of breathe that, go to the breath again and be like, oh, whoa, yeah, right.
Where did he come from?
Oh my God. Talk about like the people that light the way, right?
Wow.
I always say that we're in this reciprocal relationship with our
Mhm,
kids where
mhm,
hopefully we're lighting the way for them, but they're often shining the light for us. Um, so, I kind of had to come back to um, my work matters, my voice matters, what I create matters.
mhm,
but it comes from the pause and the stillness and the reflection. So I would offer what you could definitely go listen to that episode with Michelle Gale, which is great. But even if you just take that practice into your day, into your morning, that's one that has really been with me during this time right now.
So it's the first is just the breath.
Mm-hmm.
The second is maybe breathing in a sense of calm. And the third is the question, what matters most at this
What
moment?
matters most now?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. That is a really beautiful practice. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Do you want to do that together right now?
Okay.
And anyone who's listening
Yeah.
in time and space,
Okay.
we
You
can
lead.
do that. We can do
Okay.
that. Okay, the first one is just a breath. Second breath is breathing in a sense of calm and stillness, even amid the storm. And the third question, the third breath, what matters most now? And so, Laura, as you're guiding this conversation, I wonder what matters most to you now in terms of this inquiry.
Well, what popped into my head is that not everyone has calm immediately available to them, you know, and just that what matters most now is compassion, if, you know, compassion for wherever you are at. Yeah.
And as I was doing the breath, landscapers in the Bay Area are working again, and next door there's somebody with a very loud leaf blower. So I was literally thinking to myself, like, okay, that doesn't feel still and calm, this noise that I'm hearing, but it's here. And so some of it is actually accepting, noticing, still being with yourself, even with whatever is feeling off-centering, the expression that's coming into my mind.
Nice, thank you. So the last question, Julie, is do you have a vision or a blessing for the collective?
I do. I keep coming up with more than one thing, so I'll share the two things that popped into my mind. Can never pick
How
one.
are you when you're choosing your ice cream flavor at Baskin Robbins?
I get two. The first one is the theme of the challenge this year. We're going to be moving through a process about choosing ourselves. And, I love a good acronym mnemonic. So I realized that in these transformative moments when I've shifted something, I actually followed this process that ended up mapping to the word choose. So the 7-day challenge follows that. And my biggest hope by the end of that experience, or even actually at the beginning, that people can start by choosing themselves and choosing into that opportunity to be part of the experience. And then in the end to choose themselves, to choose their life, like even as mothers. And so I guess this is a special message for mothers around Mother's Day. Of course we love our children, and of course we want to be present for them, and of course they matter. But at the end of the day, like, we matter. And we really do need to choose ourselves first, I think. And we're going to show up as more powerful mothers and partners and change makers when we do that. So the first is, I hope there'll be some inspiration to choose yourself in whatever way that looks like. And then the other is, upon reflecting these last few weeks, and I think inspired by our mutual friend, Jenna Schwartz, who got me writing a little bit of poetry for the first time ever. a few months ago. I wrote something that I'm calling a pandemic promise.
Mm,
It's a promise to myself, but it's an offering for others. Um, and I just wanted to maybe read a few words from it
mhm,
that the amazing Lizzie Rosinko, I don't know if you know her yet,
mhm,
but she hand lettered these words for me as part of a 100-day project she's doing. So this is, I guess, the last blessing or offer I would invite you to is, during this time, not to rush through it or to, to desire for it to be over or to get back to normal. But as this Indian author, Arundhati Roy,
mhm,
talked about, that this time can actually be a portal
mhm,
and we can come through the other side in some way transformed and
mhm,
changed,
mhm,
but not if we don't create space to
mhm,
make meaning and to reflect. So the words from the poem that I want to offer are, I commit to breathe more deeply while I wait inside this pause.
mhm.
That's
Thank
the
you.
offering.
Yeah. Say that one more time.
Hmm. And it connects to the practice we just did.
Mhm,
I commit to breathe more deeply while I wait inside this pause.
mhm, mhm. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Laura. What a gift this is. And what you're creating with these cradle conversations.
Mhm,
Ah, what a light.
mhm.
How anchored it is in your framework. It's really beautiful to watch you do this.
Thank you. So before we end, I just want to say thank you so much for your friendship
Mm,
and for connecting me. I just think about Jenna Schwartz and, so many people on the other side of my connection to you. Um, and I want to again call everyone close and to just the word love just comes to me. I think just to communicate my love for you,
mm,
um, for showing up, for your openness to connect and to cultivate community with us. And yeah, just a lot of gratitude for whoever's here.
mm.
So anyway, thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Laura. This was so beautiful.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.